Corral. Taken by the Carolina Panthers. We talked about Carolina leading into the draft. No, that's not really where you want to go.
At number 6.
At number 6, yeah. In hindsight, I think Matt Corral would have been quite pleased to have gone number 6 to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, if you told him before the draft, hey, you're going to Carolina. All right.
Sweet.
Payday.
No doubt. Maybe we get a little short-sighted sometimes when we're slotting guys, well, great situation or whatever, and forget that there are only 32 of these teams. There are only 32 starting quarterback jobs in the NFL, and so maybe getting any of them is a pretty good gig, whether it's exactly where you want to be or not. But in terms of Matt Corral and his opportunity to become a starting quarterback in the NFL, is the situation in Carolina about as good as any?
You get the best of both worlds. Now, I don't expect the Panthers to be particularly good, and they've got a weird dynamic, right? Because Matt Rule is probably on the hot seat. If they're not better, he probably loses his job. So there's that weird dynamic of, okay, I've got to kind of win right now, but also I've got to develop this guy, and I can't play him before he's ready. So you've got the element of, this is a situation in which if you are better, they will play you, but also you don't have to be better right away because they do have an incumbent starter in Sam Darnold that they expect you to soon overtake. You kind of get both, right? They're not going to throw you in. They're not going to Zach Wilson you, where you're starting, buddy. Get ready. I know you were playing, San Jose State 6 months ago, but now you're going to play the Baltimore Ravens, so buckle up. Situation like that doesn't exist for Corral. But they clearly want to move on from Sam Darnold, and if you show you're ready, you will play. So he's got kind of the best of both worlds there, and there's not as much pressure on Rule to play him because he's not a first-round pick. You're not going to have the front office breathing down your neck, play the kid. I don't care, Matt. Play him. You got to play him now because they didn't use a first-round pick on him. So it's a unique spot for sure, but
And when the pick comes at the end of the third round, you just assume that that's their third or fourth pick. That was actually Carolina's second pick in the draft. They picked 6th overall and got Ekwonu out of NC State, and then they take Matt Corral at the end of the third round. Why did he drop? Why did Matt Corral drop to the third round? And I guess I should put this qualifier on it, right? It's not just Matt Corral that dropped. Like we had I don't want to speak for everybody. I had a hard time believing that teams weren't going to reach for a quarterback because teams always reach for a quarterback. Always. That's what they do.
Hey, you owe Mel Kiper an apology.
Yeah, probably not.
Not that he's listening.
Probably don't owe Mel Kiper an apology. But all of the analysts, right, thought that this was a weak quarterback class. And you had 32 teams that told you they thought it was a weak quarterback class also. Pittsburgh was content to sit at 20 and then take Kenny Pickett. And then you didn't have another quarterback go for a really long time. You have Malik Willis go in the third round of the draft. It was a weird year for quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett goes in the first round at 20. Desmond Ridder is the second quarterback taken. He doesn't go until the third round. He's the 10th pick of the third round. Malik Willis is the 22nd pick of the third round. And then Matt Corral's the 30th pick of the third round. After that, you don't get another quarterback taken until the end of the fourth round when the Patriots take Bailey Zappi. Sam Howell is the first pick of the fifth round to Washington. And then your other three quarterbacks that were drafted, Chris Oladikin out of South Dakota State, Skylar Thompson out of Kansas State, and Brock Purdy out of Iowa State. It was a weird year for quarterbacks in the draft.
It was. And so I have a theory that I was thinking about Saturday morning on this. Because a lot of people tried to figure out and were asking me, why is Corral dropping? What do they know? All this stuff. And I would respond, of course there's reasons, but everybody else is too. I can't help but wonder if finally the NFL collectively decided to be smart about how they select quarterbacks. How often in years past did teams stretch for a guy that you knew had flaws? Now, flawed guys become good players. Hello, Josh Allen. He had flaws, but he developed into a good player. Flawed guys also are exactly who you think they are. Mitch Trubisky being one. Daniel Jones being another. Because as much as I think Matt Corral's a great quarterback and will do well if provided the right opportunity, there's flaws in his game. I'm not talking about off-field stuff. In his game, there are flaws. Mm-hmm. There are flaws in Malik Willis's game. There are flaws in Sam Howell's game. And instead of the Panthers and the Titans stretching and reaching in the first round to take these guys that they're not 100% sold on, they were patient for the first time, and they get to have their cake and eat it too. The Panthers didn't have to stretch to pick a quarterback in the first round. They still got one. The Titans didn't have to stretch to pick a quarterback in the first round. They still got one. Washington didn't have to stretch to pick a quarterback in the first round, and they still got one. Next year, it won't look exactly like this because you've got two can't-miss prospects, or at least that's what they're going to sell you on, with Stroud and Young. But after that, you're telling me Dylan Gabriel's going to be a first-round pick? I promise you, they've learned. He'll be there in the third or fourth or fifth if you just wait on him.
Yeah.
Because he's flawed. Maybe they finally got smart.
The Ian Rappaport report on NFL Network when he was kind of doing analysis of the pick has struck a lot of people the wrong way. What did you make of? I mean, you've seen the video clip. You've probably heard what he said. He alluded to, alcohol issues and other related things. I think that was the wording that he used. He mentioned that Matt Corral had talked about depression. This was all in kind of answering why he dropped. What did you make of that? Is some of the criticism that has been leveled primarily by Ole Miss fans at Ian Rappaport, is it warranted?
The idea that mental illness is a stigma, maybe the language could have been gentler on that. That's something that and Borky tweeted about it. I saw that, people who need help should get help, and they shouldn't be ashamed of needing help. All right, all of us sometimes need a little help to get through the day. That's not the issue. But when people keep calling it a hit piece, like if it was a hit piece, it would have been like Tunsil. It would have come out before the draft. He would have sank him night one. He wouldn't have waited until the pick was made to explain why this guy that so many people had in the first round in their mocks fell.